If somewhere within the Bible I were to find a passage that said 2 plus 2 equals 5, I wouldn't question what I'm reading in the Bible. I would believe it, accept it as true, and then do my best to work it out and to understand it.
Hello again, welcome to episode 9 of the Godless Spell Checker podcast. A massive thanks to everyone who's been listening and downloading and sharing it. If you want to support the show, you can do by visiting gspellchecker.wordpress.com and contribute to some of the hosting costs. You can also share it on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. If you've got nothing to share it on, just drop it on a memory stick and throw it at people. If you'd like to be a guest on the show also, you can do that via the blog, gspellchecker.wordpress.com again. Hover over podcast at the top and click on Be a Guest. Stick around to the end of the show for a brand new section called Once Upon a Fallacy. It's either the most amazing idea I've ever had or the most terrible thing you'll ever hear, so I'm sure you'll let me know. But I'm absolutely convinced that there's no new arguments when debating theism. They all fall into a mixture of various logical fallacies, so I thought we'd tackle one on every new show. This week will be the ad hominem, so make sure you listen to that and let me know. I've got two guests for you today. Ladies first, we have Phyllis. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. And Mr. Gamma Atheist.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. The topic we're going to be trying to dig into is secular parenting. Quite a tough one. A lot of parents wondering how they can sort of navigate the this religiously dense culture. I was wondering if maybe I'll start with you, Phyllis, just asking a bit about your background and what's caught your attention in regards to secular parenting.
Well, my background, I actually grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor, and I fell away from the church when, as a teenager, I read the Bible. And when I had kids, I decided to just raise them as neutrally to religion as possible and let them make their own decision later on. And as a result, all three of my kids are atheist. I just felt it was better to, like I said, just give them the information, let them parse it out, and teach them how to think and not what to think, and give them that opportunity. That's how I arrived at secular parenting. I didn't know it was a thing until the last couple of years. I've been doing it for 17 years now, and I didn't even know it was a thing.
Okay, well, I mean, I think it's probably a good time to declare that I have no idea how the American educational system works, and I don't actually have any children. So in terms of input on this chat, I can offer to help you spell atheist if you get stuck at any point. But apart from that, I'm happy to listen and learn. Gamma, can you explain a little bit about why this subject is of interest to you?
Well, I mean, Phyllis is more the expert here. I'm pretty intimidated now. No, I mean, I have two daughters. They're young, 6 and 1, and just seeing how the education system here in America is, that I know it's important to instill the questioning and everything now. It's not so much of I don't want them to be religious. I just want them to be able to understand that they're allowed to question authority, and they're allowed to have these questions and to be critical thinkers.
That's great. I mean, maybe you could explain a little bit about how the educational system works there in terms of, I mean, obviously you have separation of church and state, although no one seems to care, I've noticed. But
Yeah.
How does the educational system work? Are children put into an environment where there's sort of mandated prayer or indoctrination? How does it work?
No, there's no mandated prayer, but the fact of it is most of these kids, when they go to school, they go to church. So when they go to school, they talk about it, and it's a big part of their life and everything. So of course, they're going to talk about it. So I didn't want my daughters to not know what it is or not be exposed to it, but I want them to be prepared for it.
Okay, I mean, in the UK, we do actually, in the schooling system, we do actually have mandated collective worship, as it's called, on a daily basis, which is odd. So there's nothing sort of similar to that in the States.
Only in private parochial schools. In the public school system, they're not supposed to lead them in any kind of prayer. Supposed to.
Okay. I mean, Phyllis, could you talk a little bit about, you've had a first-hand experience setting up a lot of some of the first secular schools.
Oh, yeah. Montessori education. I actually was a Montessorian for about 6 or 7 years, and my kids started out in Montessori school. And she began her schools in 1907. And it's a very unconventional sort of style of education. When she took her method into India, she realized, with was it 5 or 6 major religions all over that country, it would be a problem if everyone looked at her school and said, well, this is a Catholic running this school, so it's a Catholic school. I'm Buddhist. I don't want my child learning, Catholicism at school. So she very deliberately made a point of saying, in my school, there will be no religion. It's only education. That's it. So a Buddhist child can come to my school, a Hindu child can come to my school, a Christian child can come to my school, and nobody is going to be taught anybody else's religion. That was really revolutionary. This is like the 1940s. And in my opinion, that is the only way to ensure that everybody's, right to religion and freedom of religion is thoroughly protected. It's just keeping it neutral.
Gamma, did you say you have 2 children?
Yes, sir.
So kids, they're naturally inquisitive. They're always asking questions, and they're like sponges when they're younger. They just absorb so much as well. What sort of challenging questions did they pose to you when they first started sort of thinking for themselves that is difficult to reconcile with what culture says and what they observe themselves?
The hardest part I dealt with is trying to explain death to my child. That was probably the toughest, because we were in a situation where we had to explain death. And I didn't get the opportunity to explain it to her first. Her mother did. So she had used heaven and hell and all that. So I was like, oh, well, it's already done. And she was only 3 years old. So it wasn't like, So it wasn't like.
Once you drop those ideas, they're there, aren't they? You've sowed the seed.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, well, I'm kind of stuck with this now. Instead of being negative about it or anything, I just took it and I embraced it. I said, well, some people believe that, some people don't. I happen to be one that doesn't. But I said, as you get older, these are the type of things that we'll explore and we'll read and we'll research.
That's great. I actually threw out onto Twitter, asked if anyone's got any questions on the topic, and that's the recurring one that parents seem to be concerned about, how they handle death in the family. It can even be something as simple as a pet dying as well to raise the question. But we'll come back to that a little bit later because I've got some questions to throw at you.
Okay.
Is there any particular, Phyllis in general, is there any particular websites or resources you could probably point parents towards to maybe get a head up or get some skills they can learn?
I don't know about any websites. It's been a long time since I was researching it. But, if you Google secular parenting or Montessori, there's a lot of information out there. One of the best books to learn kind of a rundown of Montessori is called Montessori, A Modern Method by Paula Polk Lillard. And Maria Montessori was a scientist at the turn of the last century. Her books can be a bit challenging to read, whereas Paula Polk Lillard's book is a lot more accessible and very clear, and she organizes the entire method and distills it for you a bit. One of my other favorite books as a parent that really helped me was How to Talk So That Kids Will Listen and Listen So That Kids Will Talk. And at the moment, I can't remember the authors' names, but it's a wonderful book. And it talks about how sometimes we will inadvertently shut kids down when we're talking to them because we're not talking to them, we're talking at them. And we're expecting them to, respond in kind of a preconceived way. And it's a really, really good book. It's an excellent resource. It's really, it kind of shaped the entire way that I dealt with my kids, and it's been a very positive influence.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting what you say about shutting kids off. I think we don't give them enough credit for what they can understand, even at a young age, if you explain it coherently enough. I mean, Gamma, is there any sort of resource? I mean, you do a lot of work in the secular movement in the States as well. Is there any sort of resources you can point parents towards?
There's a handful of websites, and of course, as it comes up, I can't think about it. But I know there's Facebook groups. There's Moms Beyond Belief, Dads Beyond Belief. Those are some Facebook groups. There's a lot of communities on Google Plus where people can go in and just talk to parents of secular parenting. And I would also add on there, as far as books, the books I've read were from Dale McGowan, Parenting Beyond Belief or Raising Free Thinkers. He's got a handful of books out on secular parenting, and his blog as well, Memeing of Life or Memeing of Life or Life. That's another source I would use.
Yeah, that's a great thing now with the internet. There's lots of communities and social groups popping up. There's no real rule book for parenting. So it's nice that parents who have shared concerns, how to sort of navigate all the religious influence, can talk in forums and exchange tips and ideas and things like that. So yeah, obviously you'd recommend people check out some of the Facebook groups and sort of forums and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that we all have to keep in mind when parenting, is that there is no perfect way to do it. There is no set way to do it, but we can give our opinions.
Well, I think I'm going to read some of the questions I've received. I'll throw this one out to Phyllis.
Okay.
It's the big one, so no pressure. This is from KB, so that's at Gripe Vinyl. They ask, explaining death as finite has always been a challenge without an afterlife to rely on. So obviously they're asking for any sort of tips on that. So obviously what they're saying is, you know, the afterlife is sort of a get out of jail free card when dealing with death a little bit, isn't it? You know, it's almost like saying death hasn't happened and not really dealing with it. So what sort of tips would you give to someone to explain sort of bereavement in the family?
Well, it depends on the age of the child, you know, how detailed you want to get into it. When my oldest daughter was 5, her great-grandmother died. She didn't know her too terribly well. I mean, she had seen her around, and she knew her well enough. And, you know, I just explained to her that, you know, everybody gets their turn to live, and then at some point we have to die. We have to go away to make room for new people. You know, there are new babies coming into the world. Old people have to, you know, end their turn and let the new babies take a turn.
The conveyor belt theory. I like it.
Kind of. You know, for a small child, they totally get the idea of taking turns. They really dig that idea. And it's about as true as I could get to. And I said, you know, we have pictures of they called her Nanny. So I said, you know, we have pictures of her. We can tell stories about her. So in a way, she does live on in our memories. We will always remember her, even though her turn to live is now done.
No, that's really clever. That's an interesting way of dealing with it. It's sort of pragmatic as well. It's something they can visualise. Gamma, a sort of variation on the same question from Enoch, which is on Twitter at Fruit of Noah. They say, my 3-year-old is about to lose someone, the granddad in this case, which is sad. The child's old enough to know he won't be coming back, but too young to understand why. What would you say in that situation? Again, no pressure.
Well, the one way I have described death as well is it's not necessarily a bad thing. Kind of going off of like what Phyllis had said is I explain it to my daughter as if the stars hadn't died, we wouldn't be here, because essentially the elements from the stars, you know, blowing up, gave us elements and things of that nature to allow us to live, to allow us to be here. That's one way I've kind of explained it, kind of dealt with it. And also, like what Phyllis is saying as well, is trying to go over them with the pictures and good memories, and try to remember the positive things that you've had in your life with them. So it kind of takes, taking away from the negative aspect of you're never going to see them again, but kind of putting a positive thought or into your mind about the whole experience.
Yeah, it's kind of more like celebrating the life that they lived rather than focusing on the fact that they're gone now.
Great. So focusing on the positives is good. Obviously, teaching somebody something with a positive message is more effective than sort of dwelling on the negative aspects. I'll put this one to both of you, which is a good one, from someone called Kieran, I think, Kieran Cooney. It's at Ciarain. Too many eyes, Kieran. Cooney. They say dealing with questions raised when what their child is being taught in science class differs from the biblical narrative. How do you go about reconciling sort of they're being taught one thing in religious studies, Genesis, creation, and a different thing in science class?
My kids didn't study the Bible, so I did not have to really deal with that until my youngest started going to church at 10 for a couple of years with family. She quit that after, like I said, just a couple of years. But when they were really little, they didn't read those stories. The best that I think I would do is to explain that, scientists have studied exactly the way things are. Now, sometimes we will tell each other stories about the way we imagine things to be. Kids understand that there are, make-believe stories that we tell each other because they're pretty stories and they're lovely. And this is a very old story that came before science understood what happened. And there's value in that old story. It's very beautiful. It's a lovely metaphor. But science is how it actually happened.
What a lovely and eloquent way of saying religion is bullshit.
It does have some value, but it's not truth.
That's the kind of skill you have as a parent, which I don't possess. So that's brilliant. Okay, Gamma, for you, I've got a gentleman called Mr. Graham Crossan. That's at Graham, spelled Graeme, Crossan, Crossan. He asks, his 6-year-old has asked to go to Boys Brigade, which is sort of an activity club for young children, like a sort of a youth club, because his friends go. So he's excited to go there because his friends go. But he's concerned that it's fairly preachy. It's got a religious undertone, and he's against sending his child there because he knows there will be a push for a sort of indoctrination or pushing Christianity. How does he explain to the child that he doesn't really want them to go? Or should he not want them to go? Is another question.
I think so. That's the thing. It's a troubling. The age is. It's a hard age because they want to go and be with their friends, and that's all they're really concerned about. That's all they're thinking about. But one side of me is thinking to let him go and see what it is, and see what it's all about. But also to teach him, to tell him, and again, this kind of plays with the age thing, is to tell him to make sure that you don't change yourself or you don't change anything about yourself so the other group of people will accept you. Make sure you're going there because, yes, you want to spend time with your friends, but if there's things that you have to do to change within yourself to make them like you, is that something that you want to do? And again, him being 6, is there something, that's something I can have a conversation with my 6-year-old. But I know every child is different, and we don't give kids credit enough for how much they do know or they can handle, so to speak. That's a tough one. Man. We get some easier questions coming in here.
I should have devised a point system, I think, because you both are doing really well. So what you said basically there is a sort of reinforcement of what you could teach a child about peer pressure as well. It seems to all tie into the same aspect of it, sort of stick to your guns and don't do anything you feel uncomfortable with, I suppose. Phyllis, this is a good one for you. It's from someone, I've never heard of these guys, the Bible Reloaded.
Oh, yeah.
At Bible Reloaded, they sound like assholes.
They sound like a mediocre show at best.
So yeah, Jake and Hugo, or collectively known as Jugo, they will be from this moment forward. Actually, if you're listening to this, can you all just tweet at Bible Reloaded with hashtag Jugo? We're going to go JUGO. Don't explain it. Don't tell them why you've done it, and hopefully they'll hear this at some point and then hate me even more. Okay, so they ask, if you raise your kids openly secular, which I assume you have, Phyllis, so that is they know they're secular, how do you teach them to deal or interact with or treat theistic children?
Well, by saying secular, I raised them very neutral to religion. I didn't really bring it up very much. I waited for them to ask questions. So when they came home and said, one of my friends says that she's a Christian, what does that mean? So I would explain, very neutrally, this is what their religion teaches and this is what they believe. And I just would let them, continue asking more questions if they wanted more information. If they didn't, then I assumed that was all they needed to know. And I just tried to impress upon my kids that, everybody's family does things a little bit differently. Everybody has their own individual beliefs, and that's okay. There are a lot of things that you will have in common with people, and there are going to be some things that are not going to be the same between your family and other people. And that's okay. Differences are fine. As a result, my kids all have friends from a lot of different faith backgrounds. One of my kids has a Buddhist friend and Catholic friends and Christian friends, and they all get along just swimmingly. And none of them seem to care. It's really amazing how kids can be so accepting of each other. It's adults who get so set in their ways and can't tolerate each other because they're different.
I often think the kids should be in charge. It'd just be playtime and sweets.
Yeah, my middle daughter said that, she was about 13 or 14, and she and her friends would do monthly or bi-monthly sleepovers. And she said that they would sometimes get into talking about religion, and they would, kind of compare notes and, well, what do you believe? And I said, so, gosh, doesn't that cause trouble? How do you guys handle that? She said, it goes great. Nobody gets upset. Nobody gets offended. We all walk away friends at the end. Nobody cares. I'm going, okay, wait. Yeah, these are 13-year-old children who can manage something that most adults I know could not.
I think it gets a little muddied when someone, obviously usually an adult, introduces some silly concepts like eternal punishment or sin.
Yeah.
And then the child introduces that into the mix as well, sort of parrot the opinions of the adults, and that's when you get problems.
Yeah.
Gamma. So this is sort of similar. Secular Arizonan, that's at Valerie R for Romeo. She'd like, she says, I need a sweet and quirky comeback to teach my daughter whenever she is asked if she's a Christian at school.
A snarky comment? A sweet, snarky comment?
She said sweet and quirky, so not necessarily
quirky.
snarky, but maybe okay. Something she has like in a stock response she can have, which probably won't offend, but it's fairly witty.
I've always been like, that's cool, whatever. Or
go fuck yourself.
No, I've held back a little bit, or maybe I do like a high five or something. Hey, high five.
Me, I would say, no, my name is not Christian. My name is Phyllis. How do you do?
Deflection, brilliant.
Yeah, just a little bit of humor. Yeah, are you a Christian? No, I'm a Phyllis.
No, I live in reality. Sorry.
I can't help myself. It's people when people say, "Are you a Christian?" I go, "No, I'm an adult," and then you get off on the wrong foot straight. But I can't help myself. I really can't. Okay. Somebody going by the name of Think Daddy at Think Daddy as well on Twitter is that their question is so expansive. They've threw the 140 character format straight out the window. And just gone with a screenshot of an essay. So I'm only kidding. It's about three or four paragraphs, so I'll just read this out. They say, my girls, which are 9 and 6, don't know how to answer, what religion are you, when asked by other kids. I'm not sure what to tell them. In general, I teach them that there has never been a good reason offered by anyone to believe in gods or magical creatures. I like the equivocation. But if someday they find what they think is a good reason, I look forward to discussing it. Okay. I think all kids are atheist at birth, and mine remain so thus far. But I hear alarm bells when I picture them declaring this over lunch. Obviously, so how does a child vocalise whether or not they believe in God? It's easy for a kid to dutifully declare themselves either Catholic or Baptist, even if they know nothing about what that label means. Yeah, that's a pet hate of mine as well, children being labelled. So, yeah, but he feels somewhat the same way about the kids declaring atheism out of a duty or innate need to parrot their father. So, we finally get into the question. What is a good non-defensive and, importantly, non-apologetic answer to the what religion are you question? that is appropriate for kids at that age. So we're talking 9 and 6. So I think it's more or less a reworking of the last question.
I think, and this just wasn't something that came up with my kids. They all seem to handle it so swimmingly. I didn't think about it, but I think if they are struggling with it, my answer would just be, my family's just not really religious. And most people take that to mean, well, we don't go to church regularly. And that's very neutral, but at the same time, it's not, for whatever reason, people seem to think that atheism is like anti-religion, like I am your enemy now. And, to just say that, well, we're just not really religious at all. It's just, it just kind of turns them away and they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I've never had people react back related to that.
I even had people like when I first moved to where I'm at, which is very religious. I even had when I had said I'm not religious, they would say, "Oh, well, have you tried our church? You should try our church." I'm like, "No, I'm not religious." Like I'm trying to like emphasize, like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna try your Kool-Aid either.
I'm running into a lot of this. At the minute, Christianity isn't a religion; it's a philosophy. Bill O'Reilly's big on that at the minute. I can't quite wrap my head around it. I'm not sure where it's coming from, or if it's some effort to. Because religion's, luckily, hopefully, fingers crossed, religion's becoming a slightly dirty word, and I think Christianity is trying to distance itself a little bit by saying it's a philosophy. I don't know if you've heard any of this or.
Oh yeah, my favorite is it's not a religion, it's a relationship.
Not with reality.
Favorite. I just think that's so silly.
Yeah. I've only heard that from Bill O'Reilly. I haven't heard anything like that. But I have heard what Phyllis said. It's not, I'm not religious, I just have a relationship with God. It's like, I'm just, yeah, okay.
Religions, some of the more progressive types in religion, if that's not too much of an oxymoron, I've sort of realised in order for the faith to survive, they have to cooperate. You have interfaith initiatives now where Muslims and Jews, Sikhs, Christians will all sort of work together, and it's socially acceptable now if a young kid is at school. I'm a Christian. What are you? Oh, I'm a Muslim, and that's fine. What are you? I'm an atheist. An atheist? Mm-hmm. That just seems dirty. No matter.
Right.
No matter, it's not accepted. I mean, they don't seem to understand that these religions are fundamentally opposed to the point where they mandate killing each other. Yet somebody who doesn't hold these ideals are less accepted than, say, the Muslim friend or the Sikh friend. And I think that's more of a societal thing, and I'm not sure how that's going to change anytime soon.
Right, and I always tell them when I express that I'm an atheist to someone, and they give me that negative, "Oh, you're an atheist," or "You're going to hell," and da. I let them do their spiel, and I say, "Listen, I just want to break this down to you really easy. I have killed as many people as I've ever wanted to. Mm-hmm. I have raped as many women as I've wanted to.
Stolen everything you ever wanted to steal."
You know what? I'm just gonna cut that there and then send it into the police.
Yeah, Penn Jillette said the same thing. He's like, do you want to know the list of everybody I've ever wanted to rape and kill? I can give it to you right now. It has 0 names on it. And if yours has any names on it, I worry about you.
They really don't understand how terrifying it is when they ask you something like, how do you know, not to murder?
Right.
You have to be taught not to kill people?
Yeah, and that's another thing I'll go about, and I steal this from Herb Silverman. He says, if that's what you need to ensure that you do not kill someone or to kill or rape or anything like that, please continue to keep believing in your God.
I know, right?
Yeah, it is scary. I think you get a lot of people on the atheist side as well who sort of parrot that view, but a little bit more arrogant with it, where you shouldn't attack religion. These people need it as if they're lower down, when really some of them are not. They don't know any different. They've been indoctrinated from a young age, or they've never really considered the alternatives. It's still a taboo. I mean, even in secular UK, I don't know why I have a strange, weird, anxious feeling whenever I have to declare myself as a non-believer or something like that. It's still a taboo.
Yeah, it's like, just because we don't play the religion game, that presents this alternative. It's totally okay to change teams, but to just stop playing, That shouldn't be an option.
No, that's a good analogy.
You can never walk away from the Monopoly game until it's over.
Yeah, yeah. And we just said, no, that's okay. You can take all the chips and go home.
No, I'm tired of playing Monopoly. It's been 6 hours. I'm done.
But the problem is with the theist view, the game of Monopoly never ends.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Go directly to hell. Do not pass go. Horrible. Okay, guys. Well, we were just coming up to the 30-minute mark, and I like to keep my little snippets concise because if I give too much content, they'll be onto me and they'll know I've got no idea what I'm doing. But I just wanted to ask you as well, if Gamma, if there's anything you wanted to promote. You do a lot of work on an atheist hangout. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, atheist hangouts. You can find out more about those at my website, gammaatheist.com. Usually, kind of like a similar thing what you're doing right here is we bring on different people. We discuss different topics. Or we bring on individuals. I was lucky enough to get Chris Cluey to come on.
Wow.
The NFL punter, he's a former NFL punter that speaks on gay rights or speaks for marriage equality. So that was pretty exciting. But then, bringing on people from the community, getting to know them, and people get to see, their facial expressions and things like that. It's all video. We do it live, but you can watch it. If you miss it, you can check it on the YouTube channel as well, and all the information's on my website, gammaatheist.com.
Gammaatheist.com. I need to get a webcam and make myself look all pretty and come on. I think.
Yeah, I mean, that would be awesome to have you on. Bring you and probably just do a whole episode of just you.
the issue there though is I am actually genuinely a stop sign. So this red complexion produces a lot of glare, so I'm not sure if it's particularly conducive to the video format, but I'll give it a go.
I mean, that's the thing, is we can give it a go. We can give it an effort.
Phyllis, where can we find you on Twitter, and is there any links or anything you want to point people towards?
Well, I'm at Phyllis Copeland. It's very creative.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. I'm a little direct. I don't have any, I don't have a blog or anything like that. I'm too busy these days. I do know that Penn Jillette is really fond of a particular charity called Opportunity Village. And if you've never heard him talk about it, he is very passionate about it. What they do is they take in adults who are mentally handicapped or autistic or just very, very challenged, and they train them to do very basic and simple jobs so that they can participate fully in society. And it's really, really neat. You probably should check them out. Like I said, he's very fierce about it. He just says, we should really stop warehousing people and give them something to do, something they can do. Some of these people can only, stuff envelopes. Some of them can only, clean bathrooms, and that's okay. That's great. They should be allowed to do that.
That sounds really interesting. I'll definitely have a look at that for sure.
Yeah, it's a really, really neat organization. So that's the only one that I can think of to plug at the moment. Of course, there's also kiva.org that Adam Reeks is really fond of. They sound like a really neat organization to look at too.
Yeah, I've not listened to his just plug herdmentalitypodcast.com. That's my Adam Reeks impression. Yeah, I've not listened to his latest one of his latest episodes. He speaks about Kiva quite a bit, doesn't he? So I'll definitely have to give that a listen.
Yeah, that was a really good episode. He was talking to one of the ladies who's been instrumental, and she's been a long-time lender, and she's like a group leader right now. So it sounds really great, and I love the point that she makes that basically she's using this as her new savings account rather than just sticking the money in the bank and letting it sit there and do nothing. You send it out into the world, you let it help somebody else, and it comes back to you.
Sounds very circle of life.
Yeah.
I think we'll end just on one final question that I got in. This is from someone called Nonprofits with a double S on the end. Interesting. They say they had 3 children. I had 3 children, all 3. What's the best way to get them to start asking questions? This is for future reference. Obviously, I don't think she expects to just put a backpack on them and now kick them out into the world.
Oh, how do you get them to stop asking questions?
Really? Yeah, I've always instilled in my daughter to always ask questions, always question authority. And she said, "Question you?" I said, "Especially me."
Yeah. I think if they're not asking questions, start asking them questions. Well, what do you think about that? When you're reading something or you're watching something on TV or you're just going about town, well, what do you think about this? Do you, just what do you think? And get their feedback. Well, why do you think that? And do you know that that's true? How can we know that this could be true? And start teaching them that basic etymology. How do we test the information that we are being given and vet it for truthfulness?
Absolutely.
They did actually follow up with my 3-year-old has been asking questions, but he gets frustrated when I ask what he thinks. Send him to bed is my advice. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, if there's nothing else you want to get in, I think this is a good place to wrap it up.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Phyllis is amazing as always.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you both. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes, absolutely. Well, hopefully this editing doesn't get in the way of church.
No, inshallah.
It was a pleasure talking with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Phyllis. You've both been great. So I'm hoping we get lots of feedback from people as well. So this is the kind of topic that can be an ongoing one as well. It's there's no, like you say, there's no manual, there's no rules, there's no answers. So it's definitely good to discuss. I find it fascinating, and I haven't even got kids, so
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not to my knowledge, anyway.
Yeah, and every kid is different. That's the biggest trick. I've got 3 of them. Every single one is different. You have to parent each child the way that they need to be parented. It's tricky.
Spinning plates constantly.
It really is.
Okay, guys. Well, have a pleasant afternoon, what's left of it, and I shall speak to you soon.
You guys have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Godless Spell Checker podcast. If you've enjoyed my guest today, make sure you send some love their way on Twitter. You can also donate to the show at gspellchecker.wordpress.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Once Upon a Fallacy. Hello, welcome to Once Upon a Fallacy with Godless Spell Checker. Today's fallacy is the ad hominem. Once upon a fallacy, David was in his car en route to pick up his friend Susan. He'd agreed to drive them both to the really cool party they'd been invited to. Susan had never learned to drive herself because she's a proper lazy tent peg. "Buckle up, Susan," said David as she got into his car. "Okay, David," said Susan. "Your voice sounds a bit funny, Susan." "Irrelevant, let's get on with it," said Susan. "Okay, Susan, okay," laughed David. David turned the key in the ignition. "Told you," and away they went. Things soon took a dark turn, however, when David began to drive like a massive twat. The car was all over the road, killing 3 sheep, a deer, and possibly a toddler. By the time they arrived at the party, Susan was quite distraught indeed, and the guests soon began to notice. "Hey, what's wrong, Susan?" inquired William McClandonald, friend of Susan and lazy Scottish stereotype. "It was awful," began Susan. "David drove like a maniac. He was going too fast, drove on the wrong side of the road, didn't stop the lights, hit several animals, and possibly 1 toddler." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to David. David thought for a moment, then began to smirk. "And what would you know about good driving, Susan? You've never learned to drive." The entire party erupted into rapturous applause and laughter at Susan's expense, many of them throwing food and even feces at Susan due to the excitement caused by David's impressive fallacious knockout. Later that week, Susan took her own life. The end. In summary, an ad hominem, which is sometimes mistaken for your everyday insult, is actually an attempt to discredit someone's argument by attacking their character or their personality traits. This is fallacious because it avoids responding to the arguments being made in favour of a personal attack. In this instance, rather than acknowledge he was a piss-poor driver when faced with Susan's valid criticism, David decided to dismiss it by attacking Susan's character, namely her inability to drive. Thank you for listening to Once Upon a Fallacy. Sweet dreams. In summary, an ad hominem fucking printer